For their second album, 2007's Blackbird, Alter Bridge would develop a lot more of their own signature sound. They've moved away from the connections with Creed. Miles Kennedy is more involved in the band. He contributes a lot more to the songwriting and even contributes lead guitar on a couple of tracks, Blackbird and Rise Today, as well as rhythm guitars. And it's nice to see him more involved in the band. This album is definitely a rock album, but as I said before, it definitely has more of what you would think of as a signature Alter Bridge sound to it. The songwriting is pretty consistent on here. There are a number of good solos, particularly in the first half. The second half, they kind of trail off a little bit, which is unfortunate. The album opens with the song Ties That Bind. This song feels like a statement for the band. It feels like the band came out and said, here we are, we found our sound, here it is, enjoy it. The song opens with a kind of quiet but pretty frantic guitar lick playing before the rest of the band kicks in. A bulk of the song is fairly heavy and quite fast. Miles does a great job on the vocals for this song. The guitar riffs are awesome. The song moves at a really nice pace, and the rhythm section does their jobs just fine. The song slows a little bit for the chorus, which isn't anything special but works really well with this track. You get a bridge after the second chorus before the third chorus comes in, and the solo comes in at the end of the song, which apparently is something that Mark started to do and is a staple of his guitar style. I still prefer a solo in the middle of the song. I'm not opposed to leaving a solo at the end of the song as well, but I would have liked something musically in the middle to break things up a little bit. I also would have liked the first two verses to be double the length. Other than that, this is a great song. I still really like it a lot. A few minor complaints, but it is a really good track and a great way to start off the album. Next we have the song Come to Life. This song starts off with a couple different heavier guitar riffs. I really like the guitar tone on this track. It has a really nice thick sound that works really well for this song. The second of the two guitar riffs that we get is a heavier version of the main verse riff. When the verses kick in, you've got the same guitar riff going, but the guitar strings are muted, so it has a quieter sound to it. Still fairly heavy. The song is more of a mid-tempo pace. Again, I feel like the verses are a little bit too short, but other than that, this song is really good. There's a nice little break before the chorus. They don't really do a full-on build towards it, but they didn't really need to. The chorus seems a little bit simple, but Miles sells it with his vocal melodies. And then we get a decently length guitar solo, for a rock band anyways, followed by a solid bridge, and then the chorus ends the song, along with a weird little, almost Incubus sounding guitar lick at the end. This is another really good track. I really love the guitar tone on it. Miles' voice is great as always. I really like this track a lot. When I saw the title for the next song, Brand New Start, I, for the life of me, could not remember this track at all. Listening to it, I do kind of remember it a little bit, but this is definitely a song I did not listen to as much as a lot of the others. The bulk of the song is acoustic guitars mixed in with some electric guitars doing some fills. And I really like the sound on the electric guitars during these parts. There's a really cool guitar effect on them. Miles sounds great on the verses, and the verses actually seem like they're at a decent length this time. Although this is a softer song, it's still at more of a mid-tempo pace, so nothing that's really dragging the pace of this album down. The chorus is heavier, but doesn't really do a whole lot for me. It doesn't bring the song home. It's serviceable, I guess. The solo after the second chorus starts with kind of a cool guitar effect, and the solo itself is fairly decent, and seems reasonably long enough. And then there's some more lead playing at the end, even though Miles is singing over it after the last chorus. This is a decent enough track. I really don't have a complaint about it, but it's not one that really stood out for me. Buried Alive starts off with some clean electric guitars picking before the main riff kicks in. This is another mid-tempo, heavier track. For the most part, this song sounds pretty good. Everybody does their jobs fine, but I remember the song being a little better than it actually is. We don't get an instrumental section to this song. There is a solo at the very end of the track, but even then Miles is singing over it, so we pretty much have vocals straight through this song. This song's decent enough, but there's not really a whole lot to say about it. It's pretty basic. While it's good, it's not really that special. Coming Home is another mid-tempo song. It's at this point where I'm really hoping for a tempo change, either a really slow song or a really fast song, something to break up the mid-tempo. This is another heavier track, and I like the guitar tone on this one. There's a good guitar riff going on throughout the verses. I like the verses a lot. They have a nice groove to them. Even the drums sound really good here. I like the sound of the cymbals. Miles' vocals are on point and great as ever. I really like the melodies during the verse. The chorus is only so-so and kind of repetitive, although again, Miles saves it with his melodies. There's no solo to this one, and again, it's constant vocals with nothing instrumental going on. I like what's here, I just would have liked to have had a guitar solo or something. Still a pretty decent track, but I could really go for a song with a different pace. I wasn't surprised to see that the next song, Before Tomorrow Comes, was a single. It definitely feels like one. This is a softer song, and although I would classify this as a mid-tempo track, I feel like it moves a little bit faster than the two previous. The verses are, as I said, soft. One thing I like is that the first verse, which is longer than the second, builds. As they get to the second half of that verse, something comes in which sounds like a guitar with a different kind of effect on it, which does add something to the song as it's moving towards the first chorus. The chorus is heavier. Mark Tremonti provides some backing vocals. There's no guitar solo to this track either. A little bit of lead at the very end of the song, but I wouldn't exactly call that a guitar solo. So we're still running into some of the same problems I've been having with a few of these songs where there's just not really anything instrumental going on. This is a pretty cool track still. I like it. I just wish there was something a little bit more to it. There's not really a whole lot I can pick out and stand out and say, oh, this was really well done, or that was really well done. It's just a fairly decent song. I do like that it has its own feel. I just wish it had a solo. Rise Today is a fairly cool song. This song rotates between softer and heavier, and rotates between the two sounds pretty effortlessly. The first verse is mostly acoustic guitars with some drums kicking in later, and some great vocals by Miles. There's an effect on the guitars which sounds pretty cool. The chorus is heavier and kind of simple and probably shouldn't work, but for some reason it does for me. After that first chorus, they go back into some acoustic guitars, but rather than going straight into the second verse, the song gets heavier. And that transition is done really well. And Miles goes from his softer vocal style to his heavier vocal style within the same song really well. The verses are definitely the strength of this track. The song does have a guitar solo. Again, it's put at the very end of the song instead of breaking up the sections with vocals. But at least it's there, and it's one of the better solos we've had to this point, even if it is a little short. Still, I really like this track a lot, and it does add some depth to the album. The title track, Blackbird, might be the most unique song in Alter Bridge's discography. Yeah, it's a softer song with some heavier sections thrown in. Yeah, it's got a verse-chorus formula going. But everything else they add to the song in between those sections works really well. And that's not to say that the verses and chorus on this song are bad by any means. This song rotates between slower paced and maybe a slower mid-tempo, so at least there's some change in the tempo compared to the last several tracks. As I said before, it's mostly a softer track with a lot of clean electric guitar with an effect on it. The verses are fine, the chorus again is fine, nothing really special to say about either of these aspects of the song. Where the song gets going, to me, is after the second chorus. There's a little bit of an instrumental break and we hear some little guitar notes being played. And then the song goes into a bridge, which I think is really well done. Has some really good vocals by Miles. And then we go into a two-part solo, which I believe is split between Mark and Miles, but I could be wrong on that one. I know both do leads on this track, but I don't know which one is which. Definitely the best solo this band has ever done. Hands down. And even after the final chorus, when you think the song's about to end, there's a little bit of a section with a few more leads. So I like how they throw in a bunch of other stuff. This song ends up lasting 8 minutes long, and I'm not saying every song by these guys needs to be 8 minutes long, just expand on some of what they already come up with a little more. One by One is another song that I absolutely do not remember. Even listening to it again, I cannot remember this track at all. It's also another mid-tempo song and another softer song with a heavier chorus. It's basically all I can say about it. There's no solo. Nothing about it really stands out to me. It's not awful or anything, but it's not really that good either. Watch Over You is next, and the best thing I can say about this track is at least it has its own feel. Listening to this song, I can't help but wonder how often I actually listen to the second half of this album, because I barely remember this track. Most of the song is acoustic guitars and vocals. In the second verse, the drums come in, and eventually some electric guitars kick in. It's definitely the prettiest song that we've had to this point on the album. Miles sounds really good. The guitars have a little bit too bright and happy of a sound to them for my liking. As I said, I like that this song has its own feel, its own identity on the album, but it doesn't do a whole lot for me. I think even though some of the elements they add, the drums, the electric guitar, do offer some change-ups for this track, I think I would have rather this song been just acoustic guitars and vocals. Because adding in the drums and the electric guitars, while they do give this song some variety, all those elements really do is make those portions of this song sound more like stuff we've heard on the rest of the album. I think if the song had stayed more stripped down and just acoustic, it would have sounded a little bit better, even if the drums kicked in a little bit. Break Me Down is another song with a softer verse, heavier chorus. I started skimming this track. It's also mid-tempo. I'm honestly kind of bored now. White Knuckles is next, and holy fucking shit, we get a heavier song. It's still mid-tempo, but at least it's a heavier track. So this song brings back that really nice guitar tone that I like in a lot of the heavier tracks on this album. The verses are pretty decent. There's a melodic section leading to the chorus, which is also decent. The mid-section has a part where the drummer is hitting some cymbals, and I thought that sounded pretty cool. Other than that, there's nothing really remarkable about this track. Everybody does their jobs just fine, but there's no guitar solo or nothing to stand out, and I really wish this song had been a lot faster. I've been desperate for a faster paced song for a while now. But at least it's heavier, at least it's a halfway decent track, so that's something. I should also add that out of all the songs after the title track, this is the only one I can actually remember. The album ends with the song Wayward One, and this is another softer, slower song. I really like the production on this song, especially when it comes to the guitars. The guitars have a very open sound to them. The production gives the guitars a lot of room to breathe. You've got some clean electric guitars playing a melody, and you've got some fill-in guitars that have a really cool effect on them. Adds a nice mix to the song. They did this in another track, but it sounds a little different here, so it works. The chorus is heavier and isn't really anything special, but it's not too bad either. And the song ends with a guitar solo. Again, it's not in the middle of the track to break it up, but at least it's there, finally, at the end. We haven't had a guitar solo since Blackbird. Of all the songs after the title track, this one is definitely my second favorite, White Knuckles being my favorite. This one's actually pretty decent. It's kind of odd that I don't remember this one. Again, I find myself a little bit disappointed coming back to an Alter Bridge album, but not nearly as much so as I was the first album. And I still gave that one a positive score. The band show a lot of growth with this one, developing more of their own sound, Miles fitting in with the band as they wrote songs for this album, and even playing guitar on here. There are quite a few good songs on here. I like 9 of the 13 tracks, so it is still a really good rock album. I think there's just that one stretch with 3 softer songs in the middle there after Blackbird that I think they really could have trimmed those out. I feel like without those 3 songs, the album would have flowed much better. If they wanted to leave Watch Over You in, they could have done that song just all acoustic, and it would have worked okay, I think. There were not enough tempo changes throughout the album, too many mid-tempo songs, and They lumped all the heavier songs pretty much together except White Knuckles, so you were left with a bunch of soft songs in the middle of the album, and I really just got bored during that stretch, especially when you got to those three that I really didn't care for. They could have also made the Damage Done and We Don't Care at All album tracks instead of bonus tracks in place of those three songs that I don't really care for. That would have improved the quality as well. But all those complaints aside, it's still a really good album. I know I've complained a lot, but as I said before, there are still 9 tracks that I do really like on here, and it is a big step forward for the band. I'm going to give this album a solid 7 out of 10, very good. It definitely has its flaws, but the strengths outweigh the flaws. Very good album.